Bam, we're live. Okay, you have a friend that what? Sorry.
I have a friend who is a former comedian, Steve Sashin, who owns Zero Shoes, and he tells me every time he Zooms with me, he feels like I'm at a comedy club.
Oh, I see the vibe with some skis in the background.
Yeah, I'm trying to break up the brick to make it not look like a comedy club.
I want to start off this wonderful encounter. First of all, you guys are staring at the man who's the author of this book. And Balance is Power, Jim Klopman. It's in this book. I don't know if you're being serious or not, but when you said it, I was like, holy shit. And I immediately sent the 9-minute and 8-second video that you made last year to my parents with the balance test and to my sister. And basically, if there is smelling, seeing, feeling, touching, and tasting, and those are the 5 senses that you think we have, it would not be wrong, whether it's true or not. It would be extremely beneficial to your life to think about the most underrated and probably the most important sense, which is balance.
Yeah.
And
it is.
And it's so integrated with all the others, obviously, with seeing and hearing for sure, and touch. But holy cow, this is some compelling. This is yummy stuff. For my audience, this is candy. This is like a free trip to the moon, and you get to explore it. I mean, it's just the coolest thing about when you start doing CrossFit is you get to explore so much. I was 34 years old. I couldn't remember the last time I'd run as fast as I can. And Coach Glassman's like, okay, go out there and run on the track 400 meters as fast as you can. I'm like, oh my God. This book is just full of that. This book will reintroduce you to a whole new world of exploration that you probably neglected since it was pushed into your unconscious at the age of 2. I'm guessing that's about what happens. Or if you fucked around with MDMA or acid, you probably open that door and then close it again. I want to show you this really quick. This is just strictly stroking myself. This is my 7-year-old son last night.
I've watched some videos of him. He's got great balance.
And here he's throwing a tennis ball right and left-handed. Now, that, just so you guys know, he's standing on this item. It's called a slack block. And it's to be, in all fairness, it's calibrated for people who are heavier than him. So it is easier for him. But what he's doing is still remarkable.
Yeah. No, I watched him swing a racket and swing a tennis ball. I, geeked on you the last couple of days, and he's got great balance to begin with. So you can't swing as hard as he does unless you have great balance. It's just that simple. The better your balance, the better. He's got great form. Don't get me wrong, but he swings as hard as he does because his feet are so well attached to the ground because he got great balance.
Is it the same mechanism at 50 years old that I use to get up in the morning that makes me a little cautious when I take those first steps out of bed in the morning that I used to not be cautious about? At 4 years old, I just rolled right off the bed to the TV set.
Yeah.
Now I get up and I'm cautious. Is that the same mechanism that is a baseball player swinging a bat as hard as you can, aiming for the fences? Could you explain that to me, make that connection?
Well, for you, it's an unseen loss. So you live in this perfect world of flat floors, perfectly vertical walls, perfectly horizontal ceilings, and flat surfaces around you. Every step is perfectly, 7.4 inches apart. There's no balance challenge in your life. So it's degraded. And you don't know it's degraded. So we have a scale 1 to 100, 25 being what you need to operate in this world without a cane and a walker. So most people are around 35, and that's the way the world's built. It's, because of ADA in America. In Europe and other parts of the world, this isn't the case, but we're built to have this perfect world. So when you wake up in the morning, your balance is slightly detuned because of the position you've been in. Your vestibular system's a little different. Your sensory awareness is a little different. You've got senses in your lower spine that control gait and motion in your lower body. All those things are just kind of sleepy. So you're now dropping your, let's say, base level of 35 down to 25. And now you're in a challenged position because you're challenged on perfectly flat surfaces. If your base was 45 or 55 after you've trained on, this is an obvious plug, but trained on the slack block or trained on something doing dynamic athletic balance, not yoga pose, not on your heels, not doing pistol squats, not putting yourself in balance positions that don't exist in everyday life, but in a true dynamic balance position. Now, when you wake up in the morning and you get up, if your base level's higher, your drop down is not going to be to a super low position.
Really quick, guys, this thing is really squishy. And this thing as soon as you step on this thing with one foot, all your attention will go straight to your foot. I always step on it barefoot. I don't know what other people do.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. And you'll notice your toes. All of a sudden, you become hyper aware of everything that's going on at the bottom of your foot. I try to stare up at the wall just because I've watched some videos. But it is not and I'm glad to hear you say that about the heel not being the right position, because I always go forward. I end up noticing that I feel like 80% of my weight is up on my whatever the palm of my foot.
Right. And so, I almost named the company Big Toe Balance. I almost named it knee over big toe balance, because those are the positions you want to be in. Your big toe is big toe for a reason. It's to be used in your balance system. And I know a lot of times when runners run, particularly if they're running straight, they land on the outside of the foot and they come in. But I have a grandson who's not unlike your children, who's just incredibly athletic. And so I've been slow motion videoing him ever since he started walking. And, it's situational. If he's running straight, he'll land here and go in. But if he's in a position where he's got to change direction, he lands on the inside of his foot and he's moving like that. And, what supposedly makes us cool as humans over apes and chimps is we have opposable thumbs, right? So, okay, that's one of the things that make us unique. Big brains, the other thing. But one thing that apes and chimps don't have as well is big toes. And it's a huge component to our balance system. And when you press that knee over the big toe, and I'm working on a video now, imagine it's my big toe, you press your knee on that big toe while you're balancing with your knee over your big toe, your arch goes up. All this muscle gets activated under the foot. So for those who are, into arch, increase your arch strength by getting it off the ground, it's a matter of not exercising your toe by pulling a piece of paper back, but it's a matter of putting that knee over the big toe and pushing down on that big toe. And that big toe is your modulator of where you are on that plate. It's you picked up all the right senses for it, for sure.
Really quick thing. Rob Best, former guest on the show, Take My Money. And what's cool about it, Rob, too? If you look at the videos, he's not even plugging his product. He shows you how to do it with a towel. And so, and I just love, I know you're being 100% serious, because I know you totally care about human movement. But since I actually got the block, I'm on it every day. My kids are on it every day. It's a trip. I want to go back to this thing, 0 to 100, just to be clear with people. Mm-hmm. And I would love to I would love to see this test. God, it would be cool if this was on an app somewhere. I would play with it all the time. What Jim is referencing is he's devised a test. It's you, right? You've devised it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And basically 0 means, I think, just 100% decrepitude, and 100
no, you're
means
lying on your back. You just can't move.
Okay. And 100 means you're Ninja Warrior champion.
Exactly.
And he has decided that somewhere between 25 and 35 is what you need to just do minimal function on in New York City, where everything's made for human beings with escalators and handles. And then when it starts dropping below 25 is when you're the guy who leans forward when he takes a piss or holds onto that metal bar in the shower, right? Hey, and I lean for. Unfortunately, I lean forward in the morning when I take a piss. Like that's or in the middle of the night, the 3 a.m. piss is like I got one hand on the wall, but it's because I'm stiff. It's to avoid pain. But Jim, where are you born?
I was born in New York City, Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in Upper Manhattan.
And how old are you?
I'm 70 years old. I'm living my 70th year. I hate to say the word 69, but I'll be 70 in my next birthday.
Awesome. Congratulations. And you're born in New York City, and did you have an athletic background? Are you sporting kid?
Yeah, I was never supported in my family for it, although my dad would throw footballs to me constantly as a kid. But was a problem child. It took me 2 years to get through 8th grade. 3 years, actually. I had to go to summer school through 8th grade. And then
fighting
grade,
or?
No, it just had, for instance, like my religion teacher, I got a 36 in religion, and my dad was like, what the hell? How can you get a 36 in religion? But the priest would tell, and write in the comments, he said, most receptive comments I've heard from any child ever that's come through any of my classes. And so I would have those constant comments, and I just had bad ADD. I didn't find out about till later in life, where when the expert who diagnosed it told me it would be around session 5 that he would be able to evaluate whether I had it or not. And he said, you probably don't, because you don't have the motions like a person with ADD. And we were halfway through the second session, and he looked at me and he goes, you poor bastard, you have the worst case I've ever seen in my life.
How old were you when that happened?
47.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Are those motions that you're talking about like tweaker motions, like an ADD person would always be like?
Right. And I'm always moving, but it's tiny motions. But going back to your question, so yeah, I mean, that was my way of burning off stuff. And my dad would put me on a bongo board, and he'd say, okay, Jimmy, how long can you stay on a bongo board? That's the balance board. And he'd drink a couple martinis, and I'd stay up for 60 minutes. But I moved around from school to school because I would get thrown out of schools, but I lettered in 5 different sports when I was in high school.
Wow.
I played football.
Meaning you played varsity in 5 different sports at the highest level at the high school. What were they?
Soccer, lacrosse, skiing, football, baseball.
Wow.
And my senior year, I was asked to play football, and we played 6-man football in the New York area, but we played against basically youth prisons. They were called reform schools in those days. So these were kids who didn't make it in Newark, New Jersey school systems or Orange City school systems. So they were rough and tough and very quick. And, I ended up getting an MVP with the team and all tri-state. So I had good movement skills, but none of this shit came together until I guess I was in my 50s that I sort of figured out what was going on.
Siblings?
Do I have siblings? Yeah. I have living 5. There were 7 of us all together,
including you.
Yeah.
Wow, big family. And so just to keep going down this rabbit hole, what does ADD look like that it makes it so you don't do your work? Meaning, like, while the teacher's talking, you're supposed to be reading Job in Bible class, you're fucking with your shoelaces, or you're making a paper airplane, or
I don't know. In those days, they didn't know what it was. So, my parents in 2nd grade, my dad was president of the Board of Education. So I got the best of the best, but they sent me off to NYU for 5 days to be tested. And so we can't find anything wrong with him. He's above average intelligence and just needs to work harder. So I have all my report cards going back to kindergarten, and they all say the same thing. He's not applying himself and he daydreams. And I understand that. I am the world's best daydreamer. I can switch off and go to a brain movie and do it for 2 hours straight and just take myself on some venture. And so I've been doing that my whole life. And I don't know why it is. Other than the fact, I don't know if you got in the part in the book, at 47, I figured something must be wrong with my brain. So I went to Daniel Amen and I had a full SPECT scan done. And apparently I have a good deal of brain damage. So.
How did you get that? I've heard you talk about that, but I didn't hear how you got it. I was like, did he do a lot of coke? What did he do?
Please. Oddly enough, one of the parts where I have the most damage is in the cerebellum, which is supposed to be the center of balance. And I contend there's nobody within 20 years of my age that has balance as good as I do. So it is just interesting how the brain kind of rewires itself and resets itself back up to do different things. But I lived in a violent household. I don't remember much. I remember bits and pieces that were horrible. And it wasn't my parents. It was siblings. And I was number 4 or 5 down the line. And, I kind of know what happened, but whatever happened to me probably happened to them. So I have no.
Just a lot of fighting between you and your siblings.
Yeah, I think that was it. And getting beaten up some. And then later on in life, reckless living. I can recognize some of the damaged areas from car crashes, ski crashes, water skiing crashes, things like that. So,
have you been close to death?
Have I?
Yeah, in any of these accidents?
No. Mm-mm. I mean, I've saved lives before, but I've never been, I've never had somebody save my life or felt like I've been close to death.
Well, you're definitely going to, people who listen to you, you're going to add years to people's lives. One of the stats that I read over and over, and I repeated it to a few people, and I'm struggling getting my head wrapped around it, is that 50% of all the people who check into a hospital over the age of 45, like people who go to emergency rooms, the source of their issue started with a fall.
Yeah. And I tell that, I mean, I've been doing this.
I believe it, but I also don't believe it, but I believe it, because I just saw the entire earth go through they shut the earth down for 2 years saying that it was because of COVID, when that's looking at the symptom, when the issue is obesity. Not one healthy person died.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit, he's pointing at the issue. The issue isn't you have a broken hip. That's the symptom. The issue is that you didn't use the slack block and you fell down.
Right.
I can't even fucking believe that you've pointed at one of the most obvious underlying issues debilitating humanity just with like, hey, here, look, here's my block.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Well, I think, I've talked to enough people over the years, and I always repeat that statistic. And when I'm training somebody, and I don't know how many people who have said, yes, that happened to me. And they're healthy, fit looking people. They're not, obese or don't have muscle tone or that type of thing. They're healthy, fit looking people who have had that fall. So it doesn't necessarily attack just those who are out of shape. Another statistic that I find mind blowing is the number one cause of falls for people over the age of 65 are curbs. And
I saw that too.
Going back to our point before about the perfect world, well, steps are perfectly separated. Every move and every building and everything man-made is perfect height, except for curbs. They end up being varying heights because there's no real laws for what a curb height is or isn't. Roads change, roads get more material put down on them. So that's a step up that people have to do that's never the same. And it's just, that doesn't work if you go back 1,000 years and we're walking around the woods. You got to learn how to step on shit without falling down and getting hurt.
We have these huge, you were around in the 80s, and we have the whole thing was everyone's dying of AIDS. I never knew one person who died of AIDS, but off the top of my head, I can think of 6 people's grandmothers who fell, broke their hip, and died.
Right.
Just 6, just like that. Oh, his.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you broke your hip, you went to the hospital, you got pneumonia, and you died.
You know what the number one cause of concussions are? $90 billion a year problem.
Fall?
It's not Johnny on the football field or Sally on a soccer pitch. It's from falls. And so I find it interesting. I mean, I have his book here. It's all taped up. There's famous podcaster wrote a big book on brain health and all the things you can do for brain health, and take this and do this and meditate here and all this kind of stuff. And there's nothing in there about improve your balance, because the number one cause of TBIs, concussions, are falls. So I can take care of a lot of problems without having to go through all that other shit to protect my brain, just by having better balance.
It's interesting you bring up meditation. There are these activities that we can do in life that I don't think a lot of people really understand what even meditation is, but smoking is a form of meditation. It's evil meditation, but it brings all of your attention to your fingers and to your mouth, and you take a deep breath in. Unfortunately, you breathe in carcinogens, but the nicotine is also probably one of the greatest drugs too, to help with meditation. But if you stand on this slack block and you ask yourself, what is the definition of meditation? You will be forced into a meditative state. It's like walking into a room and imagining a king cobra in there, and then the door locks behind you. All of your attention will go to this king cobra. Now, obviously, the situation in the room with the king cobra is much more severe. It's life or death. But when you stand on the slack block, your entire body will say to you, you need to pay attention. You're going to fall down. And you will all of a sudden, all of your awareness will come to one place. And it's interesting, you describe that in the inverse that there's people who could control their heartbeats. There's people who can control their breathing. There's people who can control all these nuances of life, but there's no one who can just be like, okay, I'm going to lose my balance.
Right.
You can't do that sincerely. You have to fake it. And I was like, wow.
And it's almost impossible.
Or you need a horse to kick you in the head. Right.
Well, I mean, two things. One, it's really wonderful you picked up on that meditative part of it, because I've had people who want to train. We don't train anybody with music on because it artificially shuts off the conscious mind.
Okay.
So I had a client that came in who had great balance, but he always trained with earplugs in, and he was a paddleboard racer. Wasn't pro, but he was pretty good. He went to some big race. He fell 19 times. And I said, dude, I told you when you wear those headphones, you don't have good balance when you don't have them in. So next time you race, get waterproof headphones, put them in, and see how it goes. Next time he races, doesn't fall once because he's got waterproof headphones in. So unless you play your sport with music on, you can do it. But otherwise, you have to learn to, and I've been doing this for 10 years, and the 12-minute routine sounds like you know something about it. When I do those 2-minute segments, I swear to God, for me, even today, at about 1:30, 1:45, I go, oh, damn, I didn't push the button on the clock. Oh, the clock must be broken. And it's not that I don't have the ability to do it. It's the neurological focus. It's not just brain focus, because you have brain tissue all around your body that's affecting your balance. It's neurological focus. It's pretty fucking intense. And so it's amazing that you understood that, because that's exactly what it is.
But you have pushed the button on the clock, but it's your brain starting to tell you a story to try to get out of the activity?
Yeah, it's not my brain. It's my body's just getting, I'm neurologically exhausted. It's just like, I want to, something, there's sort of like this fear module that takes over. Brain's quiet the whole time. Plays to activate. We spend a lot of time with vision, and I talked a little bit about it in the book, and I don't talk about a lot of things online and so forth unless we're selling it. We haven't started selling this yet, but there's aspect of your vision that change dramatically as your balance improves. Your eyes open up to a wider space. You take in more data. And your eyes don't see, by the way. Your eyes only collect data. Your brain is what sees. So that whole system starts to activate and become better as your balance improves.
When my dad started to lose his hearing, he would say that he would accuse everyone of mumbling.
Right.
Why are you mumbling? Why are you mumbling? And I would tell him, hey, dude, your hearing's fucked up. And there's something you point to. There's a direct parallel in your book about that.
Yeah.
I'll find it unless you can remember what I'm talking about.
No, I remember exactly what it is.
Okay, what is it?
Well, it's part of what I don't talk about. So we have this peripheral vision system, and it pulls in a massive amount of data. Just to give you some simple numbers, you've got cones, rods, and cones. So cones are what see color and shape. And when you see my hand, that's the cones working. Rods are only supposed to see, help you with light, dusk, and some movement. But there's a problem with that, in that there's only like 6 or 7 million cones, and there's 120 million rods. So there's 12, 15 times more rods than there are cones. So whoever created this system we're in, we're like 15 times more. Oh, but wait a minute. Rods are 1,000 times more light sensitive than cones. So now I have 15,000 times more power in these rods. And supposedly all they see is shape and little movement and differences in light. Not the case. And so peripheral vision is a massive part of your balance system. And once you learn how to engage your peripheral vision properly, your balance system improves. But what's happening today is, like the child, like somebody with hearing, when your hearing gets turned off, or you start to lose your hearing, you lose the ability to perceive what's good information coming into your ears. So when you get those hearing aids put in, and if you put them in too late, you hear everything. My mom did this, drove her crazy. She goes in a restaurant, she hears every voice.
Oh, by the way, nicotine's the only drug, by the way, that they know of, man. That's called, I read a book about that called range. It's slightly different than focus. You lose your ability to choose, okay, I'm not going to listen to the chirping birds. I'm only going to listen to Jim.
Right. So when I work with concussion clients, they lose that system. And what happens is they've now been traumatized around the brain and the head, and they're in a state of post-traumatic stress, the body is. So they're looking around trying to pick up a threat with their conscious vision. And at some point, they just get worn out. I call it brown out. The brain goes to drops down to not being able to perform properly, and they have to get out of that situation and go rest someplace in a dark room. Where you and I walk around, if you have good peripheral vision, you're able to pick up threats. Now, what happens, and I think I might mention this in the book, there is peripheral vision denial going on now, because if you relate this to, and I'll tell you in a second, everybody's looking at screens, and they're not seeing what's going around the screens. So I've had people, little people, looking at the screen walk right into me. Well, if you were in the jungle,
I see that shit every day. I see that shit every day as I drive my kids around from activity to activity. People, right. I call it social lack of situational awareness. But you're right. It's they can't see.
Well, what happens? You know what amblyopia is when a kid has a weak eye. So if someone has amblyopia, a child has amblyopia, you cover the strong eye, and the weak eye can see. It just learns how to muscle in and get into the right direction where you want it to go. By age 8, if it has not been corrected, the brain goes, I'm done, and shuts off that part of the brain. The eye can see, but the brain just like, I'm done with that. So it's very hard to get amblyopia back in line again after age 8. Well, the same thing's true with peripheral vision denial to some extent. If we're doing this all the time, we're shutting off the processing centers in the brain that are trying to pick up this data. And we spend a lot of time working on that. We have methods for it that I won't talk about here, but I mean, I'll talk about it with you privately.
How about just go stand on a boat and look out at the fucking horizon for a month?
That exactly. So
I have New Mexico, right? And just let that shit just open up.
There's exactly. And why do executives have the big windows and the big offices on the top of the building? Because it helps your thinking better than anybody else. You look out that window and like, oh, shit just comes to you. You're right. Those big giant vistas are wonderful. Out west, all that stuff is incredible. And because there's no perfectly vertical horizontal surfaces, everything's fractal, your brain doesn't get lined up. Your vision doesn't get lined up. Your body has to sort of line up with the energy around it, so to speak, and not be looking at the visual cues. I agree with that 100%. I think that's a great way to do it. And that's why people do it. It makes them, by the way, you do things like that for fun. You balance train for fun. You go play every sport that you play to challenge your balance. It makes you feel good. And people don't think about, oh, I know lifting makes me feel good. Lifting's got like a massive balance challenge to it, for God's sakes. And try to do that on an uneven surface. It takes it even to a higher level. The point is, you're always challenging your balance. You're always opening your vista, and it makes you feel good. It's when you get in front of that computer, you get in that room, you get in that box, things go to shit. So
one of the just most beautiful representations I know of a man, when I think of a man, is this guy, this friend of mine, Donovan Winters. He has a daughter, and they come over and play with my kids a lot. And he's just a man. Like when I think of, like, you open up the book Man, and he's in there. He's kind, he's beautiful, he's gentle, and he's fierce, and he's powerful, and he's fearless, and he's present. And I said to him, dude, have you seen this SlackBow? Oh yeah, I had it at my desk for years. I stand on it every day. I'm like, yeah, of course you fucking do. Yeah. And it's like, I get it. The balance, like, he knew. He's no geek, you know what I mean? He's not like, he's not geeking out on all the newest shit.
Yeah.
He just
that's a wonderful compliment. Yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah.
So going back to my dad. So basically what I watched happen is his hearing went bad, and he didn't get hearing aids. And I watched his mental, I watched him erode mentally, and I watched him compensate for lack of knowing what's going on in the outside world with a noisier brain. And it fucking broke my heart. Yeah. And now he's wearing a hearing aid more. But what happened is he started, and we're surrounded in a world. I would say at least half the country is like this anyway, without a loss of hearing, but they're in an echo chamber. Right. So, I would say something to him, and he wouldn't really understand what I was saying. So he would make up what he thought it was, and then he would respond to that made up thing. Right. And man, it broke my heart watching. I watched his hearing erode, and then it caused his some sort of mental component that you were talking about erode. Instead of periphery, it was Yeah.
I mean, I watched it. My father didn't lose his hearing, but he was in the textile business, and all his friends were, and they all worked in the mills when they were kids, and they were noisy, and they were all half deaf. And he would joke about, sitting down at breakfast with them, hey, it's a beautiful day out. Yeah, the Rays played a great game.
Yes. Yes.
And that conversation would go on, and he'd go, "Geez, you can't even join in." So,
what about looking up at the sky? I know we're falling into a hole again. This is a great point. Have you ever looked up into the sky for a couple minutes at a time? Is that a good therapy for?
I don't know for balance. I don't know. I
mean, it's obviously not bad for you to look up at the sky. It's got to have some therapeutic component. But what about in regards to balance?
No, I mean, I don't think so. We just say open your vision. We have physical tests that I can show you that when you look at a drishti point, like they do in yoga, and I still never say that right because I feel like I'm going to spit when I say it right.
Do you know how to spell it? I want to look it up. Never heard that word.
Grish. They go drishti, something like that.
Drishti point. Maybe my wife's listening live right now, and she'll like. A quick. Okay. Anyway. Okay. Go on. Someone will say. Someone will write it in the comments. Someone will write it in the comments, and I'll Google it. Go on.
Yeah. I mean, I was at the biohacking show recently, and explained to a guy how, looking at a point makes you not balance as well. You actually lose coordination. And he said, I have such a hard time with the tree pose. And I said, well, here, let me show you. Took him through how physically and he was less coordinated when he looked at a point, and then showed him how he was more coordinated when he had broad vision. And then we went through and I showed him a couple of things to do when he did his tree pose. And he's like, it's easy now. And so once you understand a few components about balance, you do the tree pose, it's really not a problem at all. So I mean, don't get me wrong, yoga's fine, but it's just interesting that people do different things that they consider to be balance, but they're not, particularly if you're holding still. If you've got your arms crossed and a leg pegged to the other leg, that's not balance. I mean, it's balance, don't get me wrong, but it's not true dynamic athletic movement balance. It's not a balance that I need to live my life. It's not in an athletic position.
Yesterday, after I pulled out the bongo board for my kids.
There you go.
And my kids are fantastic skateboarders, and they're just fantastic at everything they do. But doesn't come natural. It's all it's work. Right. Like I'm going to get off the podcast with you, and I'm going to work with them until 7:00 at night. It's just we just train all day. But I pull out the bongo board, and they suck at it. They completely suck at it. It was fascinating, and they started crying and getting scared when I got on. I'm like, dude, I own this thing. I can't do that slack. Like my son was doing pistols on the slack block. I'm like, I can't do that. But I own, and it's interesting. There are different kinds of balance.
Yeah.
I would think they would own the bongo board. It's a joke.
Here, let me see if I can switch over. You see that? So we have.
Oh, boards. I want that so bad. I want you are so cool.
So we're getting ready to market these. This is one I'll show now, but we have several others that do several different things. But, one thing I train all the time on these boards is when people get on them barefoot, but, your knees have to be in because your motion is this. It's not up and down. And when little kids get on it, they want to do up and down. But
yes, that's what they do. They get all radical. Yeah.
So you just want to go side to side. So we actually will hold their hands to begin with. But, when you get on it.
Don't make them soft, Jim. Don't be holding anyone's hands.
No, initially it's okay just to get them started. And you can actually stand behind them and have your hands beside their hips. And it only takes a quarter pound of balance to stay up. But, we do this, and then we do all kinds of things that go with this. We don't do ollies and kinds of tricks, but I think that's a very important training device as well. So.
You got a small roller under yours. The bongo ball is like a huge one that isn't. The cylinder also isn't. I'll
give you our design
off on the edges.
Yeah. So we do this. So we got ours trailing through in here. We have a 3-inch roller. The bigger the roller, the harder it is to get up on it. But the easier it is once you're up on it. And then secondly, when the roller doesn't have any stops and it's outside your shoulders, it's real easy to have it shoot from underneath you. So when I get up on it, it's easier at a smaller height. And then, but it's harder ultimately because it rolls faster.
When is that thing behind you going to be released?
We're working on it.
I need that.
Yeah, they're wonderful. So we've really upgraded the design, but what we're trying to do is make it lighter. But it's interesting, I know you're in the world of lifting, right? So this is a hard thing to do balance-wise, and it looks easier once you know how to do it. But if I bounce up and down on this thing, I'm landing with maybe 3 times my body weight over a 10-foot span. I mean, there's thousands of pounds of pressure on the middle of this thing, and we're trying to make it lighter. And, you know, every time we make it lighter, the engineers say, we got it, it's good. I said, well, I got to come test it out. I come test it out. I jump on it a few times, and it goes, beep. So we're trying to make it not so big and shorter and probably a little bit more difficult.
Have
But
Rogue make it. Will weigh 700 pounds and it will never fold in half.
Yeah. No, I've thought of that, but you know, we're going to give it one more shot, and then maybe I'll go talk to them. You know, Rogue sells a slack block, which I appreciate. That I really.
Why don't you do Amazon? What's the business thought behind that?
Well, we're getting ready to get on Amazon. One is that, you know, initially we knew how much people liked the product, so we hadn't really circled the product yet with all the patents. We have a couple patents on it. Blake Hudson, our technical officer, has done a great job of getting patents for the slack block, and then we have a design patent on it. We've trademarked the name slack block. But you know, as soon as you get on there and you get 200 good reviews, you've just done marketing for all the knockoff artists all over the world, and then you're playing whack-a-mole trying to get them out of the way. Right. So we've encircled the product pretty well now with patent protections, and it's, you know, one reason we never went on Kickstarter. You go on Kickstarter and you do well. And you've just done everybody else's marketing. So we've stayed away, but now we're looking at either, I don't know how we're going to do it. We're talking to one company in terms of handling it ourselves, and we're talking to another company in terms of having them take it over completely and let me do marketing and the things that I should be doing instead of running a business.
There is a great influencer story. It's not a word I use. I think I've done 600 shows. That's the first time I've ever used the word influencer. There's a great influencer story that between you and Kelly Starrett.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what year? Can you just tell me the journey? What year did you first make your very first slack block?
The slack block was probably 6 years ago. SlackBow 5 years ago. SlackBow was 11 years ago.
So slack block, when you made that, did you just go to the store and buy a piece of foam and put a piece of wood on it and start there?
No. So
can you tell me about the first prototype and then how Kelly Starrett found it?
Yeah. So I mean, it started here. You know, go back to here. You know, I had the SlackBow, and I had a little gym in Park City, Utah, and so I noticed as I swept it up steeper on the sides that the foot would deform on the line. So then I made a plate to go on the line, and I noticed that the plate was, and this is an interesting thing that people find hard to believe, standing on a rope is easier than standing on a 1-inch line. Standing on a 1-inch line is easier than standing on a 2-inch line, and standing on a 3.5-inch plate is harder than standing on a 2-inch line. So I found that, you know, getting this plate, suddenly I was trying to not deform the line. And the other thing I didn't want to do was I was always having to clean the lines because we were doing barefoot, and it was a pain in the ass to clean them. With the plate, I just washed the plate. So it turns out with the plate that 3.5 inches made it harder. But not only that, I could get my big toe. You can't see this probably, but I get my big toe on the line. I mean, on the plate. Where before, if I just had the line, my big toe, the most important part of the balance system, was off. Now my big toe's engaged when I stand up on the line. So I thought, this is all pretty cool. And in those days, I had this foam that I put on the ends to protect people from dinging their heads, because I had not had the product out for that long, and I was always worried about someone falling and splitting their head open. And then, I don't know, one day I was screwing around, and I took the foam, I stood on the foam, and I would train people on the foam, you know, like the AirX foam, but, you know, just our little thin piece of foam. And then one day I put the plate on it, and I was like, oh, shit, this is it. So it was not any act of genius. It was just acts of I guess, most of my life, which is just, well, that seems interesting. Let me just mess around with that. So we got the slack block made, and I started making them by hand, and I sold some. And as time, I had a very specific foam, and then I went and lost the contact with that foam and had one manufacturer. We made a batch that wasn't that good. And then I don't know. I've been selling to major teams. I mean, there was a major football team. I was dead broke. I was living in a borrowed home. I was in debt right at the beginning of COVID, and I'm not going to say who it is, a major football team. They're a top 6 football team. And
NFL,
they called me up.
NFL team.
No, college team. And they called me up, and it's probably the highest paid trainer in the country. He called me up around Christmas. He says, I've been meaning to tell you. And they buy like 60 SlackBows from me every year. And he said, I just got to tell you. And we created a 9-level test only for him and the only people that have it out there. He said, I got to tell you, everything you said is true. He said, our injury rates are way down. When someone moves up in their testing score, they perform better on the field. We now remediate everybody. Everybody has a score. We check on them every few weeks. We begin every session with SlackBow Balance training of some sort. And I'm like, cool. And he said, I want to go into business with you. I want to be partners with you. And I just think this is going to take over the world. I'm like, good. Finally, I did the entrepreneurs bottom out. Things are going to turn around. So we'll speak after Christmas. So he spoke after Christmas and he goes, well, he said, we want to wait till we win a national championship before we tell everybody. And I said, how about us going? He said, yeah, but let's just wait until we get to a national championship. And this was a problem I started running into everywhere. We have teams and coaches and trainers that use this product and go crazy over it. And then they don't want to tell anybody about it because it ends up being a competitive advantage. So I'm back.
Oh, really?
So I'm back, and these guys don't want to tell anybody. So I'm back to sucking wind on the product, and just to have some of these teams go, hey, yeah, we use it, we love it. So then moving forward,
were you broke because of all the time and energy you were putting into this? You were just chasing one dream.
Yeah, because I had created other technologies in the past, and I didn't hang with them. I let them go because developers have a problem. One, we're socially awkward, and that's why we develop things, because we don't understand that it can't be done, right? So 2, there's a tendency to give up because you get trampled on by people knocking you off, people telling you you're crazy. And so for 9 years, the strength and conditioning community told me I was nuts. I mean, they told me I was causing injuries, that there was no association with balance and improved performance. 70 years.
What was the injury? People falling off the block?
Yes. No, it would cause
falling
you
off the bow?
No, not falling off. It would cause you to have a different kind of muscle alignment that would make for ACL tears, which is not true. We see totally the opposite happening. Right. But, and then, I love the research part of it because I've looked at all the research. They had either bad protocols or bad outcomes measured. So it wasn't even worthwhile research. Ours was simple. I mean, does it improve athletic performance? And it did. So we just went from there. But the other was it's zero risk. If you use a SlackBow for 2 or 3 hours, your performance is going to improve right away. You'll notice it somewhere in your athletic performance.
And by 2 or 3 hours, you mean 15 minutes a day for a few months. You're not talking about 2 or 3 hour session, right? Okay.
Right. So if you do like a total of, let's say, 10 to 20 sessions, you'll notice huge differences. So then one day, the story is Kelly, somehow Tim Ferriss had some. So Kelly, he tells the story. He says, I went into Tim's garage. Well, everybody says, oh, yeah, it's such a piece of shit. It was in Tim's garage. Tim's fitness center is in his garage. He probably has a 7-car garage, and there's one bay that's just devoted to equipment. Kelly said he got on it, and the first time he got on it, that was it. He said, I knew right away it was a game changer. And so he got online and he bragged about it. And I said, Kelly, can I use this for an ad? He goes, yeah, go ahead. And I said, well, let me set you up an affiliate link. He says, no, don't bother. I want to see this fly. So I set him up an affiliate link anyways, because I just thought he was so generous. And he's been great about it. I saw him recently at the biohacking conference. He's a lovely guy. He said to me, he said, there's nobody else in our space that's doing what you're doing. He said, I will come visit you and do a video with you telling you how the SlackBow saved me after my knee replacement. So he's just I just think the world of Kelly. I really do. And, he's got a business to run. I understand that, but he's been good to me. And because of that, there's now a certain, you know, the right person has said, yeah, it's okay, it's cool to do. And we get constant, you know, physical therapists. I had my knee operated on 20 years ago. It's been tweaky ever since. Spent, you know, a couple hours on a slack block, gone. Or, you know, it's just these kind of stories are coming through all the time. And they're hard to relate because honestly, most of them sound like bullshit. I mean, was online with a Finnish physical therapist. No, he was in Austria and he was from Scotland. Scottish physical therapist in Austria working with runners. And he said they had a kid that had post-operation of some sort, and they'd been working with him for months and they couldn't get rid of the pain. He said the kid got on the slack block one day, and the next day he walked in, he said, pain's gone. And so we know why these things are happening. It's just so far outside of the research literature and the PhD thinking that just people look at you and just go, well,
nothing about it doesn't make sense.
Oh, it's to a person like yourself, but to many in the world of academia and beyond, like, where's your research? Which bothers me anyways. People go, where's your research? And I had some PhD say that to me one day, and she was on a national team. I said, you gonna go work out this afternoon? She said, yeah. I said, can I come watch you? She said, sure. I said, would you do me a favor? Would you give me two research references to everything you do?
Yeah.
That was the end of the conversation. Because there's very little that says, do this and it's going to improve your athletic performance. I'll tell you and guarantee you, do this, it's going to improve your athletic performance.
Many years ago, I think I was at the University of Omaha or University of Nebraska. I can't remember. One of the big schools. And I was in there. They had a strength and conditioning coach named Joe Westerlin, who's now one of the CrossFit seminar staff. Right. And he was talking to me about the girls' soccer team and about how every single one of them had this scar down their leg and they had surgery. Right. And he goes, do you know what that's from? And I go, I'm wearing cleats and pivoting. He goes, no, that's from people putting shoes on their kids losing ankle flexion and the knee and hip, immediately trying to compensate for, he said, it's the stupidest thing ever. He said, as soon as you reduce the range of motion down there, the rest of the body, the back, the knee, he said, I bet you all those injuries, the vast majority of them. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And then now everywhere I look, I see kids wearing rain boots, but in my kids' tennis class. And I'm like, what? Or when I see high tops, I cringe on kids. I'm like, what? Or any shoes, actually. My kids never wore shoes. I'm like, wow.
So I go to the zero shoes shows now with them because we bring slack blocks and people go, tell us about the shoe. And the shoe has no structure, no toe lift, no heel.
Do you wear those?
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're basically flat, right? And
yeah, those are pretty.
They can do this. There's no lifts on the heel. There's no lifts on the toe. And so we just have people, I have a thing called the shoe balance test on the slack block. And I go, okay, leave one shoe on and then put on one of their shoes. Get on the slack block. And I mean, the person after person will go, holy shit, what a difference. And you'll see people come in, what you're talking about. Not only that, shoes are so squishy that they have no foot strength. So then it continues to go like this and get worse and worse and worse. And, you know, the great thing about zero shoes is they do basically what our product does to a certain extent. They don't improve your balance as much, but they do improve foot strength. And when you get on the slack block, and you'll find this out as time goes on, you improve your foot strength. And we would have people come in to train and they go on the SlackBow or the slack block and they'd have their clunky shoes on. And they go, shoes on, shoes off. I said, well, let's keep them on and see what happens. And they get up on the SlackBow, and then after about a minute or less, they'd go, God, my feet are killing me. And I go, because your feet are trying to do all of this to help you out and nothing's happening. So it just keeps working, and not getting any feedback or not getting any impact through the foam. Take your shoes off and take your socks off. Boom. 2 seconds later, I said, no more foot pain. And people don't realize your feet are working like crazy through those mushy shoes and nothing's happening. So you're actually building strength in all these different positions that have no value to you because there's no impact. There's no effect coming back from moving your foot.
Do you know about this product called the One Wheel?
Yeah, I do for sure.
My kid, when I bought it for him, weighed under 50 pounds and he couldn't activate the plates. So I took his shoes off.
Right.
Probably I'm going to get in trouble for that. Cause you go fast on it. If you crash with no shoes,
I know, right.
So he rode it for a year with no shoes. And then I started, one day I'm like, I'm going to try this thing. And, man, riding that thing. And when he rides barefoot, he can activate the plates, right? Because the weight's not spread out all over the bottom of the shoe, and he's just shy of being heavy enough. So he knows how to press it, like with digits and in the heel or the palm of foot. Yeah, it was fascinating.
Even better, right?
Yeah. And I rode that thing barefoot for 10 minutes. And I'm almost always barefoot. I'm barefoot more than I have shoes on. I rode that thing for 10 minutes and the bottom of my feet were so sore, like I had been running in soft sand.
Right.
And I thought, man, these types of things have to be explored.
Right. Well, I watched you because, again, I geeked on you because I didn't know much about you when you invited me. And honestly, it's an honor to be on here with you because, listening to many of your podcasts and watching some of your things on Instagram, I mean, it's an honor that you asked to talk to me.
Dude.
So I watched you do some sort of overhead lift, and you could see your feet pretty well. And you were on the front, and then you went stacked, and you finished off on the back of your heels on the outside of your foot. And there's really nothing that happens on your heels on the outside of your foot. There's no moving tissue there. But we get there because we like to, when we lift a weight, we want to get stacked. And what I mean stacked is let me move to this again.
How do you do that? How do you switch your cameras so easily like that?
I can show you my whole setup. So this is
I need that
here thing. So stacked is you got all the bones just stacked on top of each other, right?
Yeah.
So that works great. Now, if you were to push me, I'm just going to go over like a log. But we're always trying to do everything in a dynamic athletic position. Is weights on the big toe, knees are bent, ass is slightly stuck out, and I'm not bending at the waist, I'm bending at the hip, and hands are here. So if I drop down, I'm kind of in that same relative position. It just collapses all the way down. So, if I see somebody lifting, I would say lift, if you can, staying in this position because this is your movement position as opposed to this. So even when I see people lifting up the bags, they lift and they get to this stiff position. Now, a friend of mine recently was doing
we're taught, I think, 80% or somewhere between 60 and 80% heel and 20 to 40 in the toes. And you're saying you don't like that.
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. A friend of mine who I ski with recently called me, and he lives in Wyckoff, New Jersey, and he's got a backyard and all that kind of stuff. And he goes, man, he says, I've been moving these big boulders around in my backyard, and I've had sciatica for like a couple of years, and now my sciatica's gone. He said, lifting is good. I go, dude, it wasn't lifting that did that for you. He goes, what was it? I said, you've been lifting in the gym for years, right? Yeah. So what makes you think lifting boulders is different than lifting in the gym? I said, you're doing severe, heavy-duty balance training. He said, what do you mean? I said, you pick up a boulder and you got to walk around your yard and step over stuff and climb up walls and do all that kind of crap. That's balance training. So if you want to lift, go do something challenging outside. I just don't think lifting and balance training should be done together. But if people always want to do it, they want to get on the slack block and do some sort of heavy lifting. But if you want to lift and then go do balance training afterwards, what we'll do is, sorry, I keep doing this to you. I don't make you see.
No, I love it. I love it. I feel like you're showing off. I love it.
I'm
watching Mr. Rogers as a kid. Like you walked into the other room and you're gonna show me how to tie a tie now or something. You're gonna put your shoes on.
and because of the wall, I'll tell you a joke afterwards. But if you get on here and this is just 10 pounds, I think. Just get up here and you're like, oh, okay, this is easy. And then like a minute in, you're like, oh shit, this is not so easy. Because I've now got something that's changed my center of gravity. I can switch to the other hand, change my center of gravity. So these things, they add a lot in terms to adding to the balance challenge, but it's not really building muscle. And building muscle is kind of an interesting thing. We have a gym in California now who says that building muscle is the second thing that they do. They believe the first thing they need to do is to build up all the stabilizers, build up all the mini muscles in the body, and then lifting gets better. And we get reports. Who was it that was reporting this? Maybe it's the same gym in downtown San Francisco. So I guess they train all the cool kids. But he said that their lifters are coming in and saying after the balance training that they're able to lift more. And I know why. He said the curious one, though, is that we have, cyclists who train indoors and are measuring the wattage output and so forth. He said they're saying they're getting increased wattage after they've been balance training for a while. He said, this is just so bizarre. And I said, I think what happens, and we've seen this when we did our test, our initial test was on vertical leap because it was really the only thing we felt was a halfway valid test of coordination. And after 120 minutes, 10 sessions, everybody increased their vertical leap by over 10%.
Yeah, that's incredible. Except one guy.
Except one guy who just, his was massively high to begin with. It was like almost world record. And he only gained 8%. But
that's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, but it was interesting to watch them jump because they were just much more fluid and athletic afterwards. And so to me, it somehow when you activate, and to me it's a software system, it's a mystery. Nobody knows. It's a mystery what happens. Because if I train you, you get better so quickly. It's not from increased muscle size, because you can't increase muscles that quickly. And it's not from some sort of improvement in skill level. I mean, if you try to teach somebody a new skill, like hitting a tennis racket, a tennis ball or a golf ball, it takes a while. Your improvement in balance is really rapid, and the outcomes from it are really rapid. So to me, it's just like some sort of software system gets rewired, and that rewiring of that software also affects all the other muscles in the body and makes them work more efficiently. I think it's a metaphor. Somebody's going to call me up, contact me, and say, "Where's your research?" There is no research. Leave me alone.
They're crazy. They're crazy. They're crazy. Taking a shower makes you feel better. Where's your research? I don't care. You just shut your mouth. We'll get ahead of them. I want to show you this. Oh, before I show you this device. So then when it's fascinating that Kelly endorsed this, that he didn't try to be like, hey, I'm only going to endorse it if you give me percentage of the company. And what it's so great, because there are so many people I've met who are not like that.
Yeah, no, Kelly's, but don't get me wrong. He's not big on mentioning my name or my book, which is okay. But he said he mentioned me in his new book, but that's okay. I mean, I understand that. We all got businesses to run, but he has been exceptionally generous to me, and both in time and comments. He's just, he's a lovely guy. He's been great to me.
And it turned the corner for your product is what you're saying, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I knew somebody was gonna have to step up at some point in time.
Right.
I was just, everybody talks about, oh, you've got to do this with your marketing and that with your marketing. I've tried it. I mean, I've had marketing experts come in and help me. And after a year, they'll scratch their head and go, I don't know what to do. And in all new technologies, I mean, I have two quotes on my wall here, is that, every great new idea starts out as blasphemy. And, to all developers out there that have something new and different, the thing I would tell you to do is, try not to go crazy and just hang in there. It'll come together for you. But you have to hang in there. You kind of have to let the world catch up.
So in a nutshell, he mentions it. I mean, that's how I found it. He mentions it, and right. and then the sales numbers just start going up. Yeah,
they did. And then I think, yes.
Because he puts his reputation on the line. If he says he likes it and it ends up being ass, he's fucked.
No, and then he had his knee replacement shortly thereafter, and it was a big part of his whole knee replacement video series. So when
I type in your name, a knee replacement video with Kelly Starrett pops up, and it's because he's got the slack block in it. Yeah,
right.
So I mean,
So he's been great, and I think too, like we had one NBA team, and then we have another NBA team, and then I can't mention their names, so I just feel bad about it. But there's a team that performed way above their pay grades, so to speak, last year. And they use our product. But not only do they use our product, what's important is a lot of people will buy the product and just, oh, here's a cool way of using your product. We have patented the protocol because it's that important to us. And again, Blake's a big part of that, but he did that. But patenting the protocol was important because it means that much. And if you do the protocol properly, it works. So we have people who want to do pistol squats on them all the time.
First thing my kids did.
That's fine.
By the way, dangerous for adults. My kid wants to ollie on it too. It sits in the garage and he gets on it and treats it like a skateboard immediately. I'm like, you're crazy.
Well, it's funny. My little 2-year-old, or now 4-year-old, who's got great balance, he got on the first, swear to God, I have it on video. And I have a little one that we have as prototype, so I'm going to send you one for your kids. But he's on.
I would love that, by the way. I would love that.
He's on the little prototype one. He gets on with 2 feet, pointed in one direction, jumps up, does a 180, lands it. And I have a slow motion video of it, and you can see every movement is perfect movement. He hasn't been fucked up yet by adults and shoes and all this other stuff. So it's just interesting if you watch these kids, your kids, my grandchildren, they have these beautifully natural movements.
Yeah.
And, one thing I've been watching my 2-year-old grandson, who I live near here, is that he's now in the falling stage of learning to balance. So when we teach balance training, I have to.
How old is he, by the way, when you say he's in the falling stage?
He's 2.5.
Okay.
So I teach, to teach balance training, I have to push you to a limit. Well, your absolute limit's falling, but that's not going to be a good business model, right? So I got to know where you are just before you fall. And that's a big part, I think, of our technology. So when I train, I can take you to that limit, take you to that limit, and then you're going to progress because I'm pushing you to limits. When kids are young, they fall and don't get injured. This kid is doing stuff all the time, crazy stuff, and just falling on the ground. And that's just how he's learning how to balance. And he'll continue to do that for a couple of years. And then at some point, falling hurts a little bit more. And then he'll do it less and less. But it's just fascinating to watch them improve their balance. And it's just, I don't know. It's great to watch, and I don't know how I got on this subject, but
no, it's good. On a completely side note, for all the people out there, and I know you guys have heard me say this 1,000 times. Every time your child, when I used to walk with my child a mile every day, bare minimum, starting at 14 months or 15 months, whenever he started walking. By the way, I believe crawling is the holy grail of fitness. You should never encourage your kids to walk. The second you start walking, you're going to walk your whole life. Do not fucking encourage your kids to walk. Reward them for great crawling. That's my, like those things where you stand up and the kid pushes you around the house. Fuck that, all that stuff, in my opinion.
That's right. Yeah.
It's good for the brain. It's good for the shoulders. It's good for the knees, everything. But once my kids started falling, every time you pick your child up from a fall, you have stolen an air squat from your child. And my child would fall 500 times a day. 500, I figured about. If I would have picked him up every time, I would be stronger and my child would be weaker. And I do not steal the falls from your child. This is a device, this company, Tumble Track, has been exceedingly generous to me for years with my kids and supporting the growth of my kids. And this was a cheerleading trainer that they have that's supposed to simulate the cheerleader standing in the palm of one of the carrier's hands, right? So like when the guy's holding the girl up and and her foot's on her hand.
Can you go down to one of the other boxes so I can see it in use?
Let's see.
On the left hand, on your left-hand side.
Let me see if there's a picture of. I'll pull up a video here. Let me see if I can pull up a video, or maybe. Let me see.
No, I think Tumble Track makes some great products, and we have.
Oh, you know them?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I haven't seen this. This is great.
But basically, that many years ago, I asked for that. I'm like, or a couple of years ago, I said, "Hey, fly right, Tumble Track," and this SlackBow is that kind of on steroids,
right?
I mean, because that spring is so firm, stiff.
But here's something I've had cheerleaders and big time gymnastic coaches come, and they all want to do this. So they think that did I flip to the right one? Yeah. They all want to do this. They get on the block and they want to go. And they want to hold everything in that perfect position. And so if I get up there and I lock out my shoulders, just watch what happens. The whole bottom part of my body wiggles. When you get on the balance beam for the first time, you're like, oh damn, how do I? And all that quiets down into a real quiet motion. And when they're up there holding their arms like this, if they're not locked out, they're moving slightly. You just don't see it. So it's just interesting when you watch cheerleaders and gymnasts train, try to get on the SlackBow. I kind of have to detune them, take them out of that, hold everything perfectly still like this, because they think that's the right thing to do. Well, when you initially start, you should let everything move, and then it will get quiet, and then you'll be comfortable holding that position. And you'll be moving microscopically, but you'll still be moving.
Yep. Greg Glassman used to say that when you see someone on the slack line and the line's moving, that line moving is the noise in their brain.
Well, I call it neurological confusion. I think it's, again, this is a metaphor. So you have these, what we're missing, I think, in the fitness world altogether. There you go. I get it. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. So, let's see. Let's go back a little bit and see how I think she jumps up. Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Okay, go on. Sorry. So the noise in the line.
So that's shaking, that tremoring. So we're again controlling and training all the little tiny micro muscles. So when someone gets on a slack block for the first time, even great athletes with a slack bow, oftentimes will say within 30 seconds, I'm sweating. Why am I sweating? I'm not moving. And it's because these little tiny muscles all over the body that really aren't talked about or discovered are firing all around your spine, all around all the control mechanisms on your body to hold you in place. They're not the big on-off muscles that you use when you're lifting. And I think that's what happens in the back. You use big on-off muscles that are the big muscles around the back and the arms and the shoulders. But it's the little tiny muscles that hold the spine in place, they hold the knee in place, they hold the shoulder in place. And so when you can activate and motivate these little tiny muscles to work properly, you will be able to balance better. Now, what happens initially when you get on the line and there's a tremoring, I call it sewing machine leg, it's going like this. That's your muscles saying, okay, it's your turn. No, it's your turn. No, it's your turn. No, it's your turn. And they're out of sync. And it's amazing how we'll get people that have wild tremoring. And I always do this if someone has wild tremoring at the beginning of a session. I said, just relax. And then we go through the session and I go, okay, get back up on the line. And the tremor has been reduced by over 50%. And they're like, that's insane. And that's the body working through the solution. And oddly enough, the next time they come in, let's say a day or two later, the tremoring most likely will be all gone. So the body works on the software realignment even when you're not training anymore. So it doesn't happen just when you're training. When you leave, it continues to operate and improve. And then you get back on the next day and you're like, I'm a lot better than when I left the day before. And that's the body just working that stuff out. It's getting its act together. I mean, it's an amazing system. And I purposely didn't go get trained in anything in fitness because I didn't want to learn the name of every muscle in Latin. I try not to use any Latin word at all because I just think that there's this sense of we know how the body works. We don't. There's shit that goes on we don't know. And I don't know. I think I mentioned in the book, there's neuroreceptors in the lower spine that control gait and motion of the lower part of your body. So it takes data from the lower part of your body, manipulates it, and sends that data back in terms of movement signals. It doesn't even go to your brain. And this was just discovered.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like 7 years ago. And the researcher who discovered it made a comment in one of the science journals. He goes, they were interviewing him. He said, well, and somebody said, I think the interviewer said, that's crazy. He goes, yeah. He said, the great thing is that there's 40,000 neuroscience researchers in the world. And that's because we really don't know what's going on. He said, there wouldn't be that many researchers if we knew everything. But you hear so many people in this industry say, well, it's this, it's that. It's this. And that's why why do you call it the balance system? You don't call it the vestibular system, the proprioceptive system. Because it is your vestibular system. It is your proprioceptive system. It's signaling in the hands. There's great research about balance being affected by your tongue position. I mean, I just think there's so many different, there's 1,000 to 2,000 receptors on the bottom of your feet. There's just so many things out there that are affecting your balance system. You just can't call it one thing. And that's why I even say, if you're training with your eyes closed, you're just teaching yourself to be a well-balanced blind person. No, your eyes are a huge component. Use them, learn how to use them properly. And once you do, your balance gets better. Everything else in your life gets better when you can start to operate your balance system and engage all that comes into your eyes. So it's a very complex system. And yet people think they know exactly how it works. They don't. I don't.
The couple things here, there's so many anecdotal examples. You're practicing a piano piece, you can't get it, you go to sleep, you wake up in the morning and you got it.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
And because your brain does something. I go to bed at night and I'm like, who is that SlackBow guy? What was his name? Okay, when I wake up in the morning, it'll be there. I don't know how it works, but when I wake up, it's like Jim Klopman. And I'll do that when I'm driving. Instead of like forcing myself to think about it, I'll be like, hey, I'll just talk to my brain like it's a person.
Yeah.
Hey, can you pull this up for me?
I do the same thing, yeah.
And it works. I feel like it works 100% of the time. Does Jim recommend a certain time of day using the slack block first thing in the morning or before bed?
I don't. I really don't. I used to be real rigid and, do the 12-minute routine 3 times a week. But I've run into enough people go, yeah, I use it, 4 minutes a day. And, my golf, I've lowered my handicap by, 30%. So, I mean, I worked with a group in Michigan. They've had slack bows for years and they make it part of their circuit. So this group would only spend maybe a minute to 2 minutes every day when they ran the circuit. And I thought when I came in to work with them that day that they'd all suck and they hadn't gotten anything over the 5 years of working on the slack block for a minute to 2 minutes at a time. I mean, SlackBow, and they were all great. So I was like, well, I guess, I don't know. Maybe anytime you want. I mean, just do it is the thing. And I think what happens, and it's happened to you, and it is wonderful to hear you talk about it, is once this balance thing gets in your head, it's there all the time. You're like evaluating every day. And I have all sorts of things I do when I go out in public. When I ride a train at the airport, going from one gate to the other, I don't hold on to a thing. I just ride the train.
I think we want to find common denominators. Don't eat sugar. Work on your balance.
Yeah.
Be nice to people. You want to find these common denominators that make your life better.
Right. Ride an escalator and not going down, but going up only. Ride an escalator and try to stand on one foot. I mean, there's so many things. Walk downstairs and try not to look. Of course, if you're wearing bifocals or glasses that have readers on the bottom, don't do this. But if you're not wearing glasses, you're wearing single vision glasses. Walk down the stairs and try not to look down. It's really hard to train yourself that when you get to that last step, that I know where that last step is. I trust where that last step is and I'll land properly. But it takes a while not to look down. There's so many things you can do just to work with your balance on a day-to-day basis. So,
dude, there's so many people who can't even do the assault runner in my house.
Right.
They have to hold the side.
Yeah, that's tough.
They can't figure out that, like, hey, just slow down, chill.
Right. Right.
It'll come. And even walking back, like I walk backwards on it more than I do forward on it.
Right. That's really good too. Yeah.
I'm just completely be a presumptuous asshole here. Ready? What about a block that isn't so high, that the foam isn't so thick?
Yeah. Keep going.
I know you're probably looking there. There is that magic amount of wiggle and you need a certain amount of foam in order to get the desired stimulus. Oh my goodness. Here we go.
You mean like that?
Yes, sir. Okay. And because that high one, we've all wrecked on it, me and my kids, but doing things we should not be doing on it. Like I have been asking them to do just stupid shit on it. And we all,
there's warnings all over the box.
Yeah.
I mean, inside. And, if you want to sue me, go ahead. Because you can just have the company at that point. I'll walk away. I have 3 little boys, and they, when they do ollies on it, sometimes it turns over on its side. Yeah, and so it's not. And so some people have it roll over. That's why the wings are on there. Because initially we didn't have the wings, but the wings are on there to keep it from rolling over. And some people will really try to push it hard and it'll roll over. But we've never had an ankle sprain with it. We have this lower version because I'm not sure I want to work with an older crowd.
Yeah.
Use this, and it's a different protocol altogether, and it's a different market. So
I would like to see my mom and dad on that one. My mom's great shape, 79 years old, CrossFitter, but some vertigo issues.
Right.
I'd love to see her on the lower.
I'd rather work with her, do a Zoom session with her first, and see where she is.
Or even towel, I guess, right? And you recommend the towel all the time.
Well, but we do one thing with older people. That's this. So we don't ask them to balance on it. For them, we just want them to go step throughs. 1001, 1002.
Oh,
that's
okay.
All.
Yeah.
1001. You can do this barefoot. So, I mean, if you take people who, and I think this is fascinating, your kids and you won't have a problem, but it's amazing how many people can't do this, which when I land, I'm landing with, 3 to 4 times my body weight. How do I control that? Can I leap and land 1001, 1002, 1001, 1002. You'd be shocked how hard that is for people to do. You'd be shocked. And it's even, they don't like it when I do it, and then they go to do it and they can't do it. But just simple stuff like that is a good place for them to start. And even if your parents looked at that second video that you talked about and did the towels and played around with that,
my sister did it last night. She's a good athlete. She passed with flying colors, and she's only 55. But yeah, great video.
Good.
I took another thing I did is I took the slack block and I built up some mats next to it, and I did this movement called candlesticks. And normally you stand back up, but basically a candlestick is I would stand on one foot like this,
right,
and I would just squat
until my butt touches my calf and then roll on my back. And without the slack block, I would swing back up and stand back up and do a pistol. But I just did the negatives with the slack block. And I really enjoyed that. I really, really enjoyed that.
But to us, people can do, listen, if I sell glasses to drink out of, I can't tell you to drink water or whiskey. You can do whatever you want with it. But to me, I see people doing this and I'm like, well, okay, where are you? You're on your heel with your knees straight and you're in a position that may be strengthening muscles, but in what functional position are you in? You're basically in a position you're in before you fall on your ass. So good for you. You'll have good balance when you fall on your ass. I want you to be in this. It's the same thing when people do RDLs. They go, oh, look, I can do an RDL. So they bend over with a big weight and they have a big cantilever out here. Well, that's not very hard to do because there's no balance challenge with that straight leg and that hand way out there like that. So to me, it's like, where is my balance? How am I moving? Where's my balance? And what am I doing? And how am I balancing in that position? That's all I want to do. I just want to make an athlete better. And then when you move through life, I want you to move like an athlete. We teach people to walk all the time because people are walking like this, on their heels, back with straight legs. And they're wearing out their hips and their knees. Where you have this spring, you have these huge springs that do this all the time. So why not land with some spring? And you can watch good athletes. And so watch your kids when they walk, when they're, you got to watch out for that because they'll get into bad walking patterns through the shoes. But if you walk like a badass and an athlete all day long, you don't even have to train. Don't train at all. Just move like an athlete and you'll become more athletic. So to me, when I show people, and I have really incredible fit guys and gals doing amazing things on the slack block, squatting down with a 20-pound weight and getting back up in a pistol squat. I'm like, cool, good. Don't say it's bad. Don't say it's bad for you. Don't know what you're training for, but it's not something we focus on. We focus only on movement, athletic balance, and that's it. Just want to keep that narrow pipeline.
Right. Do you know Dr. Romanoff? The pose guy, the Russian guy out of Florida? He does the pose seminars. Mm-hmm. You just nailing it also, basically. He's the guy, hey, running is about falling forward and catching yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And whoever can lean over the most is going to be the fastest runner in the world. Right. And you basically nailed it. When we, as we all watched our kids grow up, all we did is saw them fall forward and then catch themselves. And that's how they learned how to walk. It's pretty cool to watch.
Kyrie Irving is probably one of the most athletic guys in the NBA. There's a video out there of him doing some balance things, leaning. I swear he looks like an alien. He can lean over so far. It's like, how is he not falling over? And it's part of that same thing. He's got great balance, so he can do those kind of things.
What would I type in to find that?
Oof. Kyrie balance. Kyrie balance.
Oh yeah. Yep. Okay, here, let's see if we can see this.
It almost looks like it's been photoshopped. It's so freaky, to be honest with you. Right?
Oh.
Right?
What?
Right?
Are you believing that? That's real?
Yeah, because he's a fluid motion. He's up and back. If he was out there holding it for a long period of time, I go, bullshit. With fluid up, then he'll go back.
What is that?
It's incredible balance.
Oh my goodness. That is fantastic. I can't wait to show my kids that.
We'll find that there's a direct correlation.
Oh.
Right?
Oh my goodness, it's ridiculous. Okay, go on. Sorry.
There's a direct correlation to the better somebody's balance is, the more athletic they are. I think that the reverse has always been true. If you bring me 5 of the top receivers in the country, I'll probably tell you who the best is just by measuring the balance after a couple of minutes. Direct correlation. Direct.
Okay, let's talk about some controversial shit here. Ready?
Good. I'm sorry, I can't do that.
You mentioned, and I have to assume I don't know the years. I wish I had a games expert, CrossFit games expert on here, but you mentioned, I'm trying to find, if I can find the video. You mentioned basically that there's a CrossFit Games athlete who doesn't do well in the sprint one year and they come back the next year and win it. Mm-hmm. We all know who that is, who watched this show. It's you were obviously referencing Matt Fraser, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And when he did the ranch run in 2016, whatever, He fucking killed everybody. He killed it. He won not just by a little bit, he won by a ton. And you can watch him run through there. He had balance that far exceeded everybody else. And he also won the race where you run around I guess that one there. And he placed second, where the year before he placed like eighth. And his change of direction was far superior after that year he won, far superior. So I don't know if he balance trained, but he did something in his training that improved his balance. Because winning that ranch race like he did was phenomenal.
Have you asked him? Do you know?
No, I don't know how to get in contact with him. But his COD is much better in that race as well. So
what's COD mean?
Change of direction.
Okay.
So yeah, no, it's, to me, there was no way he won that ranch race. He stomped everybody in that race.
So you don't think it's just you don't think he just was training more running or working on his
if he did, then he knew, then he had because that was a really, really tough trail run. That was gnarly as hell. It wasn't just
he said some
run.
supplement he takes gives him a third lung. I don't even remember what it is, BCAA or something.
That may be true, but it does not matter. The ability to land and continue to move forward on some of the things that he did showed just exceptional balance. And look,
so you
do you think if he balance trains, do you think he's going to tell you that?
No. That guy does not endorse anything unless he's getting paid. Zero.
Listen, I was the first one to bring wicking technology to textiles, and I worked for Russell Athletic in their teamwear division. I ran their teamwear division, and afterwards I left to work with a chemical company that made the wicking technology, and it was amazing technology. And we would make athletes play better. They would play better. They'd use this product, and the sweat would dissipate so quickly, their shirt would be dry the whole time, and they'd be cooler, have more energy because they didn't have to sweat so much. Cool. I need $10 million. No, we're going to help you win more. I know, but I need $10 million.
Right.
So it's just like, yeah.
Okay. So you really suspect that there was some balancing.
Absolutely.
Additive,
Absolutely.
Some balance training.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. I love that. Here we go. Lifting weights on your back is patently stupid. Oh. As soon as you said that, I'm like, man, is this?
Did I say that? Are you sure you're talking about?
Yeah. I saw it slip out of your mouth.
So
that hole in the front of your face said it.
You've been nice to me for the first hour, and now you're going to rip my throat out. Okay, let's go forward.
But I think you're right.
Here's the problem with lifting in general. Okay, so I think I watched some of the CrossFit games this last week to prepare for this to see if they had integrated anything balance-wise into them, and they hadn't. But they're amazing athletes. I mean, there's just no getting beyond the fact that what they do is amazing, and that they push the human body to places that are just unbelievable to me.
Right.
I think that what they do fit today's warrior mentality, which is, if you're a warrior today, you're not really training for hand-to-hand combat. You're trained to be, how quickly can you be a pack mule and move through difficult space with as much food, ammunition, and weaponry that you can. And I think that that's super important. So all that being said, a lot of it's based on lift and move. If you were to, but there's a reactive form of muscles that we don't talk much about. We talk about apes and chimps. They're 10 times stronger than we are, right? So if I can deadlift, 2 times my body weight, which is pretty good, maybe if I was really good at 2.5 times, that's nice. So for me, that's 340, 360 pounds. But if I drop off of a 1 foot box or a 0.3 meter box and land with 2 feet, I'm hitting the ground with 4.7 times my body weight. I can't lift that. Well over 1,000 pounds. Where are we training for that eccentric load that happens? I don't know if you've ever seen an ARX machine. You know what they are? it's computer generated load. So you push out, they will max your load pushing out all the way out.
ARX machine?
Yeah, ARX. So I'm pushing out, and I'm not sponsored by them, but I'm pushing out relative numbers. I'm pushing out, I think I have numbers here. Yeah. If I'm pushing out with 200 pounds of force, and I said that's a max I can push out, and then they'll load the force where I come back in that eccentric load position, right? And they're graphing this whole thing, and I'm holding off as much as I can, holding off. I can push out 200 pounds. And you know what I can hold off?
What?
I can hold off 900 pounds. Those are the relative numbers. So to me, that to me is a more important force that we don't train enough for. So when somebody runs and lands, they're landing with probably 3 to 4 times their body weight. How they're capturing that energy in those muscles and using that to push them forward. If you watch a great long distance runner, it's like, what motion did he have to do this with? And this solved a huge problem for me because we do a lot of plyo box work. I'd watch these guys that I don't know where they were from, little tiny guys, they were Asians of some sort, that were jumping on plyo boxes that were 6 inches above them. And when you watch them, they hardly dropped at all.
6 inches above their head, you mean? Like,
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So they just, but when they dropped, you think that they go all the way down, big squat, and explode up. No, they went tip, tip, just like that, just a fast drop and up. So they somehow picked up that dropping force of 4 times their body weight, but they only went a little bit down, loaded up just a little bit, and were able to push the energy back up to get them over the top. So to me, it's a force that's missing. And we do a lot of balance training. We do what happens when you land to balance. So how am I absorbing and handling those forces? And this, I think, is just such an important part of anything we do. And I think a proper punch somehow picks up that force, that you're able to sort of load that force and then go forward with it. So when I think about lifting, I think about, have you maximized your reactive forces to this eccentric load, and have you maximized your balance? And then you can go to lifting. If you look at the top 100 athletes in the that ESPN put up of the 20th century, there's only 2 of them that are ripped. One is Bo Jackson, and he didn't work out. You can watch the 30 for 30. The fitness trainer at Auburn said, I couldn't get him to work out. He said, I work hard.
Herschel Walker said he never touched weights either. He just did push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups.
Right. And if you do the push-up and sit-ups correctly, you are using that reactive force. But, to me, I understand the reason why weights are lifted. I understand the sport of CrossFit, where it applies to certain athletic things. I'm not sure. The other thing that I'd have to have you here to show you, but we just do this with everybody we work with. If we take you and just have you do a straight up, like I'm lifting weights, just fake the motion up, 2 arms, bilateral movement. And then we do a little test your coordination. You lose coordination with that movement. Now, if we take that same set of weights and we just have you crossing the body, you notice my whole body's getting engaged with that crossing the weight over my body.
Yeah.
This is just my arms. See how my legs are getting engaged?
You lose coordination?
You lose coordination when you do just bilateral movement. Yes. And I ran into this when I'd have athletes come in to train with me, and they would suck from the previous time. I'd be like, what is going on? Are you up late last night? Are you drunk? What have you done that screwed up your balance? I don't know. I just, I worked out just an hour ago, and then it finally dawned on me, these bilateral movements, because there is in nature, when you play a sport, there is no bilateral movement. There's nothing you do when you play sport where you're using 2 limbs at the same time. Nothing. Even I've had, a football coach argue with me one day. He says, well, if you're a lineman, you are. No, I'm not. If I'm a lineman, if I'm pushing you from this position. I've got my hips turned. I'm not pushing you like this. And we have sled drills that we do that include balance. And you'd be shocked that, if somebody pushes a sled a certain distance, they're going to get a certain level of exhaustion. If you add a balance component to that sled movement, their exhaustion is much higher and happens much quicker. because it takes a lot more to push something and stay in balance than it does just to push something and not have to worry about your balance. So again, when I see bilateral movement, single lever sort of movement, it's not necessarily good for you. It makes you stronger, makes you better looking, but I don't know. What else? What other horrible thing did I say that you're going to throw back in my face?
No, I like it. But and you don't like the idea of just weight on the back, period. It's your fucking, like, is it party like, dude, it's your fucking spine. What are you doing? You need that.
No, that's not it. I mean,
Okay.
I think the rucksack guys are interesting.
Yeah.
I see nothing wrong with that. I carried my 2-year-old. We have a backpack for him. I carried him around yesterday. It's a workout. It's good for you. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's bad for you.
You have a 2-year-old or you have a grandchild?
No, I mean my grandson.
Oh God, I would have elevated you to an 11 if you had your own 2-year-old.
I'd love to have more kids, but I
from a
promised
time.
my daughters that I would not create any aunts and uncles that are younger than their kids. So.
God, there's so much to open up. I can't talk to you anymore, though. I have to go to the
you
skate
can't.
park.
Oh, what's that? Go ahead. I
to
don't care.
I have to go to the skate park.
Oh, okay.
But man, this is so good. Would you come on again?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'll take fire away at me. I enjoy that. I really do, and I appreciate you saying that. So
okay, I mean, because we need to talk about just barefoot living. We need to talk about 85% of people's MRIs show that their backs need operation on what it's like.
Yeah.
You have. I want to talk to you more about the business model. You have 7 students that you've shared the patent with on your SlackBow. If that's true, like, you've got to be the nicest man in the world.
Yeah, I did.
Entrepreneurs are supposed to be assholes. You're totally off the mark.
No,
you didn't start.
That's to counterbalance my assholeness. Is why I do that.
You didn't start to slackline until you were 55. That sounds dangerous. I hope your insurance company charges you out the wazoo for it. Falls from deaths have increased, have doubled from 2000 to 2013.
Yeah, and they're still going up. By the way, I just checked recently. They're not going down. Worldwide, they're going up. So it's, cancer and heart disease, deaths from cancer and heart disease are going down because medicine's getting better. But of course, I don't know the last 2 years with COVID, but falls from those numbers are going up every year. They're not going down. So it's a modern man's disease. As the world becomes more modern and more people get to middle class, the more of them are falling and getting injured. And this is per capita. This is not gross numbers.
People can just go online. There are so many videos for free, and you can start the protocol today. You do not need to buy anything. That's the thing. Yeah. If you start watching this guy's videos, it's almost kind of hard to find what he's selling, because he shows you how to use towels, how to do standing exercises, and the block is kind of an afterthought. But if you are like me, I love having the block in my garage, and it's just become part of the daily protocol for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Klopman. Did I say it right?
Yep.
All right. I will, I'll be in touch. I'll let this percolate. If you ever want to come back on and talk about anything, please reach out. If not, I'll probably reach back out to you in 6 months anyway.
Yep, please do. And, as we get these other products, I'll send them to you for you to, we actually have kid-sized stuff that I didn't show you today that your kids would enjoy. And I'll talk to you more about it offline, but we've got other things that you guys I didn't know you had those kids were such superstar athletes. So that was great to see.
They're everything to me. All right, brother. I will talk to you soon. You have my phone number. I don't sleep by my phone, so you can text me 24 hours a day. If you wake up 3 a.m, you're like, I should have said this to this guy. Text away. I'm the king of texting. Okay.
All right, cool. Thanks.
Ciao. I think I need to change my schedule. I want to talk to this guy for 3 hours, but I'm driving to Sunnyvale to the standing Thursday skate lesson. Do you want to see who my kids skate with? Pro skater, Josh Park skating. Maybe if I just type in Josh Park skating, it'll pop up. He has a pretty big YouTube following. He's got a huge instructional. Meet Josh. Oh, here he is. Oh, that's Josh Balogh, Balogh. BALOGH. YouTube. How come I can't find him? Skater Spotlight. Damn, when you type in his name, his YouTube doesn't pop up. He's got this huge YouTube channel, over 70,000 subscribers, hundreds of skateboarding videos. You can just hit play and put your kids in front of it, and they'll just be enthralled with it. Let me see if I click here. Oh, pro secrets and tutorials. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Share screen. So it's skate park lessons, 66,400 subscribers. And look at all these videos. It's just crazy instructional content. Anyway, that's where I'm headed if you're wondering now. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I was crazy excited to have him on. It was just an accident. I stumbled upon him. Of course, I saw it on Kelly's Instagram or a newsletter Kelly sent out. And I was like, oh, I got to talk to this dude. Okay. Thanks. Tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. I'm trying to, believe it or not, get oh, here I come. I tell my wife, here I come. Oh shit. Battery in my van just died. Shit. I'm trying to get, even though Matt Souza's on his honeymoon, I'm trying to get Matt to come on and do a live call-in show. Even though I told him I'd leave him alone for 2 weeks. I cannot. So either me, him, or Caleb will be doing a live call-in show. I'm trying to schedule a Hiller Fit review with Andrew Hiller, and I will talk to all you guys soon.